Okay, so Planner is Microsoft's Office 365 integrated project management tool. At the moment, I've got it on the screen at the Planner Hub, which is available through your web browser. And this relies on the full Planner element of 365 being enabled, but you can get some of the Planner Lite functions within your O365 groups, so within your Teams or your SharePoint. Effectively, it is just a very clever way of managing your to-dos, and it manages them across your different groups, and it puts them into what's called buckets within each of those lists of things to do, and you can rename those buckets. You can follow a Kanban, blocked, in progress, complete, backlog, or you can name them whatever you want. Maybe you want to focus on the complexity or the size of the work, such as quick tasks, medium effort, or high effort strategic tasks. And then you can kind of label them up as not started, in progress, or completed, and the system will all tag them as late if they are past the due date that you've set. You can assign to various people that are part of that group that you're in, so part of your team or the O365 group that's been created. I've got a few examples up on the screen at the moment where there's some tasks that exist in them, so you can see some dashboard analytics, MI kind of stuff around what the status is across those teams. But what we're going to do is we're going to jump into a new plan, just so you can see it being created from the start, and then create some tasks in there and see the kind of things that you can do, and then some of the more sort of advanced features that we'll talk about as well. So I'm actually, just to kind of keep it a bit more familiar for you guys, I'm going to jump into Teams and show how it looks through Teams itself. So bring that up on the screen, because I think this is probably the most familiar way to actually create plans to begin with. So you'll be within your team, and you'll be in a channel within your team. And at the top, you've got the Add a Tab. And when you choose that, you want to find the Planner option. And when you choose Planner, it'll just pop up another screen to set up that particular plan for Planner. And the first thing you're presented with is, do you want to create a new plan, or do you want to use an existing plan for that team? And that's quite useful if you've got standards that you want to quickly create, so templates. Maybe if it's in the project team, you might have a standards plan that you have for project management work, or maybe as part of a communications team, you have a set plan that you use, etc. You get the idea. So you can use existing plans that you might have, but we're going to create a new plan. Top tip, don't call them to do, action list, things like that, because that name will, it's quite plain and not non-descriptive. You want to have a plan that's unique, a name for that plan that's quite unique to what it is, because once you're a member of multiple teams working on multiple project things, that can end up being a little bit confusing when you're like, oh, which to-dos. So for example, this might be part of project ABC milestones. So I know that it's within this particular team, but having that more descriptive name helps you to understand what that's for when you're looking at all the different things that you might be allocated to. So you got the option to post to the channel about this tab. And we're just going to uncheck that, but all that does is it puts a little notification in the channel in Teams to say that that plan's been created. So click save, it'll whir along in the background, cross your fingers, and then you'll get a tab at the top with that planner name, and then you're presented with this blank plan. I'm just going to switch to the sort of the view that most of you are used to seeing, which is the default sort of view, and it looks a little bit better in Planner than the dark view, to be fair. So immediately you're given a basic plan with a to-do bucket with no tasks, and you can add the task. So the first thing that you probably want to do is think about the buckets that you've got for your particular piece of work that you're working on. So you can rename this to-do one as you want. So let's go with the Kanban style of things. So we're going to have a backlog. we're going to have an in progress. We're going to have a completed. No, we're not, because you don't need completed. And blocked. That's the other one. I'm blank there. So the reason I've not added a completed one is because when you complete a task, it automatically moves to a completed phase. By all means, you can add a bucket that's completed, but then you'd manually have to move a task that you haven't finished to that bucket to then complete it. So that's one way to do it. So you can create pretty much as many buckets as you want. Again, another tip is to try and keep the number of buckets you have quite small, because you can automatically filter on a number of other things that already exist through here. So you can filter based on the date that it's due, who it might be assigned to, any labels or priority that you've got to it. So try and keep your buckets quite small initially. So we're going to add some tasks. So I'm just going to be really basic with these. Task 1, I'm going to set a due date of next week sometime. I'm going to assign that. Now this is going to, when you assign a task, it's the people that are a member of your group or your team that are available. So this is in the IT collaboration team. So pretty much every one of you guys on the call are available. So you can't assign a task to somebody outside of that team. So if you've got people that aren't in the team, you can't assign it through this method, but you can obviously make a note to say that, for example, Grant may be the one that's going to be the owner of the task, and it's going to be completed by somebody else outside of that particular team. Once you've filled in those three basic bits of information, you don't have to fill them in at all. You can just give it a name, no due date, and not assigned to anybody, and then click Add Task. And then it will create a new card for you. So this card I can click and drag, so I can move it across to in progress or blocked, etc. And then I can actually click on the card and it will bring up a larger set of information that I can configure. So immediately I can tick the green tick it, so it's complete up in the top left. I can rename the task. I can assign to multiple people. I can change the bucket that it's in from the drop down rather than dragging the card around. So if I quickly want to move it between these, I can do. You can see it's moved back to backlog. You've got progress. So these are default settings. You can't configure anything else. You've got not started, in progress, and completed. If you want to track progress in a bit more detail, you can use some sections a bit further down. You can set a priority. So urgent, important, medium, and low. You can add a start date, which is really good in terms of trying to help with the planner, because some of the features it's got within the calendar function will really help with that. So I'm just going to put, let's say, start that Monday. I can add some notes here. So what's this task about? You can add in information here. The description about the task can be added here. And then because I've populated that section, it's now giving me another option here to show on the card. So if I choose this, the information here will appear on this card over here. So if I tick that box, you'll then see that that notes has been added onto that. And then you've got the next section is a checklist. So this is multiple items that you can add. So maybe if this is quite a large task, you can add multiple items. Step 1, enter. Step 2, enter. Step 3. Enter. So it's added those 3 items on, and again, because I've populated this, I can choose to show on the card and it'll add those items on here. It's remove the notes because it does limit the amount of information you can show on the card. So if you want to show notes and checklist, you can't. You have to choose from one, but you can flip between them. With the checklist items, you can't assign individual checklist items to individuals through the system. You can add multiple people at the top, and then you can add in items here to say this is Grant. This might be, say, the next person and the next person. You can promote items in the checklist. It doesn't really impact anything what order they're in on the checklist. And again, you can delete an item off the checklist, and once it's completed, you can tick that box and it will just show that those individual checklist items have been completed. You can add attachments from your local machine or SharePoint. So, oh, no, not. So this will look in the SharePoint site that we've got for this. So you can't upload from your OneDrive or your local machine. You do need to have it saved from that SharePoint site that the plan exists in. So I could choose this particular file here, let's choose that, and that's going to attach that as a link so people can access information. So if the task relates to data analysis or reviewing some documentation, you can provide links here so it's quite quick to move between them. And again, you can add multiple attachments. You can choose to show those links in the card, and you can edit the link and remove the link as well. The section down here is the comments. So this allows you to add in a posting of a comment against it. So this is good about tracking progress or providing questions or queries to people. So these comments become uneditable on submission. So when I press send on here, it adds it to this section underneath. So it puts who's posted it and the date and timestamp. So again, it's a good way of keeping track of what's going on. Often you think about some of the tracker systems that we use, perhaps maybe Excel stuff for doing action logs. You'd have a notes column. So this is effectively where you can track that information and quite clearly see who and when that was pasted in there. And then down the side here, you've got some labels that you can give with some colors for those particular tasks. So this helps you to link together pieces of work. So maybe you've got a year's worth of activities for your particular team. Maybe some of the activities are about lean activities. Maybe some of the activities are around your onboarding process. And there's multiple activities that all relate to that same theme. You can give them these sticky labels and you can rename those labels as well. So I could create, I've just tapped in there. So this is about onboarding, for example. And that sticky label onboarding applies to everything in this plan. So if I press enter on here and then I tick by clicking in there, I've now added that as a sticky label to this particular one. And at any point, this is saving as you go. Any point I can just click out of this card and it will close it, or the little cross up here, and that will close that down. And it's got that task card down here. So you can see it's got the little sticky label. So if you've got multiple things going on your plans, it's a quick visual way to see what that task relates to, if it's across a larger deliverable set of deliverables of work in that particular plan. Once you've completed the task, you can tick the completed button from here if you need to. You can reopen that task at any time. There's a couple of other advanced features as well. You can copy the task, move the task within that team to another plan, get a link to the task. If you want to share that with anybody else, you can do. So the copy task is quite a useful function because maybe you've got a set of standard repeatable tasks that you want to create. So you can create a template for those, have that as a template in a template bucket, and then copy that task into the relevant bucket and then rename those elements for you. So maybe there's always the same steps that you perform for particular things, so you can pre-populate those in. Maybe there's always the description or same sort of attachments. You can create that as a template. So we use that in the digital squad team for the change requests. So obviously the change team had their forward schedule of change Excel, but one of the things that Nikki Goodman did was she would put on any changes that were specific to the digital team onto our Kanban board, our planner, just so people had a visibility of that, and it'd have the relevant start and finish dates. So again, it was another way to visualize that information for that particular team. You can delete a task. So if for whatever reason you don't want to show that it's been completed, you can just click delete and it will remove that task from the planner. So that's kind of the board section of your planner. So you can add multiple buckets with multiple tasks assigned to multiple people. And you can set them to complete. And once you've completed a task, it will disappear. However, it will appear as completed items in that particular bucket. So you can always go and find those completed tasks when you need to. So any questions on the kind of the board section of the task? Anything I perhaps went over a bit too quickly? No? Okay. So
Hold on, wait.
Yep.
I actually put in a question into the chat. Oh, no, it wasn't really particularly important. You said that you can have a template set up already if in your team. Can you move a template from this team to that team?
No, so the templates exist within each team. So the plan template is unique to each team.
Okay.
So if you wanted it across multiple teams, you'd have to create those templates each time.
Okay.
So I'm just going to jump into the web view now. So just to show these other sections. So the easiest way to do that is from any planner in Teams. There's the website icon up here in the top right. And that will automatically launch me into the planner web app. But I tried to be a bit Blue Peter as much as possible. So here's one I made earlier. So this will take you into the planner hub, and any plans that you have the access to see, you can see down in the left-hand navigation bar. And if you favorite any plans, so that project ABC milestones plan I created, I've just selected it on the left, and I can click the star to make it a favorites plan. And then that will just appear in my favorite section. So when I'm looking in the planner hub, which is kind of the home for planner, it'll appear here and it'll give me those stats and information. So I'm just going to jump into this Kanban wall planner that we'd got for our digital squad team, because it's got quite a lot of content in there that's active and historically completed, because we were looking in the board section, and the board section is where you create your buckets, add your tasks, and do that management of those tasks. I'm going to jump across the charts, and this is really where we start to see how Planner can be effective, because you can change how the filters are, but we're just going to look at this as a kind of a standard thing. So it's showing me already what's the status of my tasks. So we've got 16 active tasks. 11 not started, 4 in progress, and 1 late. And we've completed 92 tasks. And this is the life of the plan. So from day one that this plan was created, it's showing me everything in there. If you want to do any sort of week-to-week or month-to-month reporting, you're going to have to use that delete function to show how many completed tasks you've had in that reporting period that you want. But that's something you'd have to, a manual process that you'd have to set up and agree with yourselves, is to go and delete any tasks that might have been completed and are older than a certain period of time. That's one of the questions that I often get asked. And then it's showing you by bucket by default, because it's set to group by bucket, the amount of tasks that are in each bucket. And then down here, it's got the number of tasks that are assigned to each member, and it's showing you the status of those tasks as well. So it's blue for in progress, sort of a grey-black for not started, and a red for late. So again, this shows you at a glance if perhaps somebody is overloaded, or perhaps somebody else could pick up some other tasks. And then down on this far left-hand side here, right-hand side, it's got all the different tasks at a glance. So you can just see those as a reference point. But then the charts are dynamic. So if I change from grouped by bucket to assigned to, oh no, it's going to show me this bit here. Status, members, bucket. Yeah, that's all the details you can see, to be fair, on here. You can filter to just show things that are assigned to an individual, and that's where the chart gets dynamically updated. So I've filtered just to myself, so you can see just for me what the status are, where those tasks are in which buckets. And if we change it back to bucket, I can see up here in each of the buckets, this is what that filter is doing. We didn't really use any of the labels or anything like that for this, because it was just a general sort of churn of activity for the team. Clear that filter, leave it grouped by bucket. You can add tasks from this section as well. So if you're having a review of things and you can perhaps see oh, there needs to be an extra task for a manager to do a review of the tasks that Grant's got, see if they can be shared out with the team. That, you can add that as a task up there. Anything that you think of on the fly, and that functionality is there. And then that's the charts view. So it's really good for that kind of day-to-day management piece, where you can come in here as part of your team calls or project calls to have a look at what's going on in what area and what the progress is on those tasks. Moving across the schedule, this might not look as we need to. Let me jump back a few. Yeah, so go back. You can see it will show the tasks on the calendar, and if the task has a start and end date, it will appear as a long line, and it will then color code to say whether or not they're late or due or in progress. And you can click on a particular task and it'll open up that task card as well, so you'll be able to have a look at that. So the calendar view is if you're religiously putting in start dates and due dates, it's a really good way of actually managing workload and understanding if people are overloaded. And you can also add brand new tasks into a particular day as well, into the relevant buckets and assigning people. It's just the calendar view for that one planner, for that one plan, because you can have multiple plans in a team. So this is just the view of that one plan. So when I say it's a good view of workload and that kind of stuff, it's unique to that particular one. So if somebody's a member of several plans, it's only going to, you're only going to see this one plan's view in that schedule view. But then the kind of the key thing is I want to see my tasks. I want to see all the things that I've got assigned across all of my different groups and my different plans. So that's where the my tasks section comes in. So I'm going to jump into my tasks, and this now is showing me anything where I am assigned across all of the different groups that I'm a member of. And it automatically puts them in based on the progress selections that you can choose for the task, not started, in progress, and completed. Because by default it's showing by progress. I could choose to show me by plan. So now it's going to show me all the different plans that I'm a member of with those different assignments that I've got. So I can see all of those different plans and the tasks that I've got. And the same with due date. So again, if you're using that feature quite well, if you're working to deadline as such, it's a good way of seeing, well, what's the next thing on my list that I need to do, what's late, what's in the future, and what has no date assigned to it. So that's again a good way of understanding, okay, what's the next piece of work that I need to pick up and start progressing. And priority as well, but we didn't really use the priorities in most of the functions that we were using. But again, you could prioritize them and see from that point of view as well. And I think that's kind of the key thing, is that having Planner and using plans in multiple teams, multiple SharePoints, and multiple groups is a good way of keeping track of all the different things that we need to be doing. Because I know we've talked about through a number of the training sessions, the amount of information, the amount of involvement. I know, we were talking about this kind of working in a matrix. You're in your team, but your day job revolves you working with different project deliveries or supporting other teams with their deliveries. And you can kind of start to lose track of what you need to do. You might be really good at making notes on a physical notepad or using tasks in Outlook. But this is a really good way of seeing how the collaboration of tasks across those groups is going. And the owners of those plans can see how the work is being shared out amongst the team, and how things are tracking to date and time. So this is the web view, and effectively that's most of the view and functions within Planner. One of the things that you might want to do when you start using it is the notifications. So up in the settings on the web, so you need to be in the web view of Planner to get to this. And the easiest way to do that is to go via that web link within Teams. The notifications setting, because that will then bring up the different notifications that can be set. because whenever somebody assigns a task to you, you're going to want to know about it. So it will send you an email, a Teams notification, and a mobile push if you've got the mobile planner app installed and configured. And that will have the base information from that planner card. So I have the title, any due dates, description, and a link to go and see the plan in the task in more detail. So I wouldn't recommend turning off someone assigns a task to me, because otherwise you're going to, unless you're going to religiously check your my tasks every day. The one that you might want to consider turning off, if you've got lots of tasks, is when a task is that's assigned to you is late, due today or during the next 7 days, and that email, because we're trying to reduce the amount of emails that we get, that email alerting can become quite burdensome if you've got a lot of tasks that you're working on. So that's one I would suggest consider switching off. And that only works if somebody's put a due date on them. So if you're not really using due date, then you perhaps don't need to consider that. But if you are, that's one that I'd seriously recommend considering changing. Often people ask about, I want to create a plan just for my tasks. That's not something that's possible within Planner. So when you create a new plan, the plan has to belong to a group. So a group is a Microsoft Teams. So an Office 365 group can be a Microsoft Teams group, a SharePoint group, and there's a couple of other ones, but predominantly we're using those two, as a Yammer one or an Outlook group as well. But you have to have a group selected. You can, of course, create your own plan just for you, but it has to be in a group. So other people will be able to see that information. Other people will be able to edit and add to that information that are a member of that group. By all means, you could create your own, a team for yourself where it's just you. That's one way of doing it. But perhaps in your local Teams site, you could create your own planner that's just for each team member. And that way you can have that access to manage your own list of things to do. And again, if you are creating your own to-do list, I think one of the best ways to manage that work is by creating buckets that talk about the effort level of that task. So if you're able to quickly add things and you go, a bit like is it that t-shirt sizing? That's a quick task, a medium effort task, that's a large task, because then that way when you've got, I've got 15 minutes before my next meeting, what quick win could I get? You can quickly run through your quick tasks. Or maybe you've got a little bit longer, or you've suddenly, you've had a series of meetings cancelled for a day and you suddenly go, oh, I've got half a day that I planned to be in back-to-back meetings. It's now suddenly freed up and I can't quite think what I should be doing. You'd be able to look down your tasks based on the effort level that you've got there. I would recommend getting the Planner app on the mobile phone as well, because again, that's a quick way to check your tasks. And there is some slight difference in functionality on the Planner on the mobile. You get the option to import the Planner due dates into your calendar. So you can actually import that into the calendar of choice that you've got on your mobile phone as well. That's one of the features that's, I think it's quite recently added to Planner. I've not got enough tasks to be able to show you how that works at the moment, but that's a good feature of having it on your phone. And often if you're traveling between meetings or work locations, again, having that on your phone, it allows you to keep up to date with the kind of tasks that you're up to. You can add quick comments and notes on your mobile phone as well. And then the other thing I'd say with Planner, because I was a member of multiple matrix teams, and pretty much every team at some point used, as you can see from most of these ones I'm here, we all had a plan, or at least one plan for each team, sometimes 2 or 3 plans in every team, and we would add tasks to them, but then we wouldn't have any focus on the tasks. So I really would, if you go into the effort of creating tasks and plans, and putting information into them, because it does take a bit of effort to create them and pop them and complete them properly. Make sure that you're consistently reviewing them often with your team, whatever that makeup of that team for that plan is, because otherwise it can get lost. And then there's nothing worse to come back to a team. For example, this one here, there's 16 tasks, and actually they've not been looked at for a month, and it can then take almost as much effort to get back on track with what those tasks were, and you kind of lose that, momentum that you'd got when you first set those tasks up. So perhaps the first thing to do is to look at your plan when you're having a team meeting or a project get together, or your quarterly review. Have a look at them, because the information you can put in there, it takes a lot of effort, and you can soon, with the day-to-day delivery of everything else and the BAU-ness, forget what's going in there. So that kind of the takeaways around that is, use it for your own work where you can. Think about how you want to size your buckets and what the groups are going to be, and then constantly review those tasks. It's almost like possibly having this as one of your home tabs, home pages, just to keep it at the forefront of your mind. Otherwise, they could slowly slip away and then you forget about them, especially some of the tasks that you assign for yourself as developmental elements. They can easily slip away. So that's kind of covered everything about Planner. We'll finish the recording there, and then we can deep dive into any Q&As.